This evening, the Cabinet has also approved the setting up of the 15th Finance Commission. The terms of reference for the Commission will be notified in due course. The government had begun the process of constituting the 15th Finance Commission by allocating 10 crore rupees in the 17-18 budget. The Finance Commission is set up every 5 years. It suggests principles governing the allocation of tax proceeds among the centre, states and local bodies. The recommendations of the 15th Finance Commission will be implemented starting April 2020. Sapna joins us now. Sapna, there is likely to be a new approach that the 15th Finance Commission will take forward. Give us a sense of what you're picking up.
Well, clearly the finance minister himself has spoken on this issue to an extent. He has said very clearly that, whatever work will be done by the 15th Finance Commission will be done keeping the impact of GST in mind. Now, what we do understand is that probably the broad terms of reference which have already been cleared by the cabinet, they might remain unchanged, but there could be some finer details. For example, on the front of GST, we are all aware about the fact that compensation to states have been guaranteed at the rate of 14% growth in revenue. So that is one factor that will have to be taken into the smaller and the finer details in the terms of reference. Also, probably other developmental benchmarks, like, for example, the pace of urbanization of various states. The point here that is going to be made probably from the part of the government would be that, previously when the 42% devolution, the vertical devolution formula had been suggested, the government had also moved the fiscal deficit goalposts, so to speak, to accommodate those recommendations. So whatever vertical devolution will come out over a course of time, there will be due consultations on that. We'll have to keep the GST reality, we'll have to keep the urbanization impact, probably some more concepts. All of that will be part of the detailed TOR. All of that will have to be kept in mind. So it's going to be a bit of a fresh approach, and this is important. Apart from this, we also understand that
Sapna, very quickly, I wanted to check with you on
15th Finance
about the members. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Sapna. Who could be the likely members?
Well, no final confirmation as of now. The nod is going to come very soon on that front. FM himself has indicated that in so many words. But obviously, the former Expenditure Secretary, Mr. Ashok Lavasa, former Banking Secretary, Anjali Dikal, probably even the former DA Secretary, Mr. Shaktikanta Das. These are some of the names which are doing the rounds. And, of course, the big one will also be who will be the chairman of the Finance Commission. We are still getting to hear Mr. N.K. Singh's name.
All right, Sapna.
But no confirmation.
Okay, thanks very much for joining us. Those could be possible contenders. Appreciate your time here. But let's bring in a reaction from a member of the 14th Finance Commission, Mr. Abhijit Sen, joins us. Mr. Sen, many thanks for joining us on the program. For the benefit of our viewers who are watching this show, sir, explain to us what you believe is going to be the difference in approach that the 15th Finance Commission will have to take, keeping in mind the new reality of the goods and services tax, and what you believe the terms of reference will need to include.
It's actually difficult for me to say. There are lots of things on the plate which have changed between, not just between the 14th Finance Commission and now, but in terms of the reactions that people had to the 14th Finance Commission, its difference with previous finance commissions. It's raising the whole devolution extent, as well as staying clear from giving incentives to the states to do X, Y, or Z. Now, I think really the TOR has to take into account two types of things. One, the changes which have taken place between the 14th Finance Commission and now, and you're right, GST is a big one. But GST, in some sense, doesn't really matter for the Finance Commission, because the GST is something which has happened, but in terms of its devolution, it's still left with the problem of what the center gets, how much of that central money goes to the states and which states, okay? The real difference, I think, is the attitude of the government towards what the 14th Finance Commission did. The 14th Finance Commission basically said that we are going to be absolutely constitutional, and we are going to give you the... We're not actually going to say states have to do this in order to get the money.
Sure.
Now that is something... Sorry? There is...
No, go ahead, sir.
I mean, the 14th Finance Commission deviated from the idea that, the Finance Commission should encourage states to do one thing or the other. It simply said,
right,
given all these parameters, this is the way things should be divided up. And there was very little for sectoral programs. The only thing you had was, a little bit on the panchayat side. But the panchayat thing remains, the attitude of the government on that. But really the big question is, does the government really want to do something to bring back what the 14th Finance Commission essentially steered clear of? And that is incentivizing states to do particular things, whether it be urbanization, whether it be Make in India things. Now, in this context, I think the really big difference the new Finance Commission will have to face, and this is important not just in terms of what has happened, but in terms of the calculation that the new Finance Commission will have to do. And that is the end of plan, non-plan distinction in the central budget.
Right.
Now, and in the state budgets. Now, so far, what the Finance Commissions have been doing, including the 14th Finance Commission, was to take as its reference the state's non-planned revenue expenditures as what needs to be protected. Now, that non-planned distinction goes away. So it will have to be the entire revenue expenditure. But then it opens up a question about, since there is no planning commission, which was supposed to actually look at the capital expenditures as well, is the 15th Finance Commission going to actually talk about capital expenditures? And that is, if it does that, then it opens up a whole Pandora's box. What is it going to do? Is the government going to have a terms of reference which lays out what it does? Or does it say that the Finance Commission itself decides upon that matter? So I think there is a lot which is there on the table. I don't know what the government is going to do. I have no clue.
Well, we don't either, sir. We don't know what the terms of reference are and who the committee members will be either, so we will need to wait to hear from the government. But appreciate you joining us here as the Cabinet has given the clearance for setting up of the 15th Finance